Hello from Stockholm and a very warm welcome to this Let's Talk Entrepreneurship event live from the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences in Stockholm, EVA. This is one of a series of talks this autumn and winter where we meet some of Sweden's top business leaders and find out from them how entrepreneurship fits into their businesses. My name's Maddy Savage. I'm a journalist with a passion for tech and innovation, and with me today is Chief Human Resources Officer for Spotify, Katarina Berg. Katarina, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here in this very historic library. Love doing events from in here. And thanks to all of you for watching us at home or from the office or wherever you are. We really want you guys to be engaged in this discussion as well. You can send in your questions using the chat function in the event. We'll get to as many of them as we can during the conversation, and any we don't get to, we'll pick up after we switch the cameras off. So, Katarina, let's start with the first question that we have been putting to all of our guests during this season. How do you define entrepreneurship? What does it mean to you?
I think the easy and also maybe the fast answer is entrepreneurship, but put into an organization.
Okay, so Spotify, of course, started as a startup, a very entrepreneurial endeavor, and it's transformed into a much bigger company. I think you've got 6,000 people around that worldwide?
I think I checked Monday and then it was 7,128 people.
It's gone up rapidly since I started my research on the company.
Well, we do employ close to 150 people every month.
Very quick. So how much has it been important then to hold on to the entrepreneurial roots of the company?
I think it's been very important, and in all these kind of the startup, the scale up, and then now a bit more mature kind of phases in the organization, for several reasons. One, I think it's part of our DNA. I think also all these startups come from a very kind of entrepreneurial background or ambiance or environment. And knowing that if you want to stay creative, you also want to stay innovative, then it's super, super important. But I think also in these different phases, it comes consciously or unconsciously. So you have to work with it, and it has to be part of the culture you are creating and trying to enable that in a very conscious way.
So tell us more about that culture. What have you tried to keep from the early days and savor?
I think every startup understands that kind of underdog mentality and how much that propels, and also what good comes from that, right? All those drivers. But then it's very, very hard when you're not a startup or when you want to build on that and kind of the passion and everybody knows everybody and it's easy to work, and you can actually be a specialist, but you are invited to all conversations. Then you grow, and then you kind of are set to focus and dig deeper into what is your kind of area of expertise. Then in many ways it gets a bit more boring, especially if you like that first phase. So how do you do that? And I think you can view that more or less as any relationship or marriage even. You come in, you're excited, you like your partner, everything is going well, you have your honeymoon phase. And then 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, most of the time when it comes to work, and especially in tech, earlier than hopefully in a marriage, you go like, let's evaluate this a bit. Let's see what this really is. And then you, like what I usually say, in the bottom phase and the left phase of the U. And then you go, let's see, I'm not really sure. And, I had so many ideas. I kind of liked when we were a bit like rocky, and it was fresh and it was like a up for all kind of type of breakfast. And then if you decide then you will stay in your marriage or you will stay in your company, then you go like, okay, I reevaluated this now. I'm repurposed and I'm kind of reproposing again. And I think in all these phases, to keep that kind of environment of feeling safe and having a culture where a good idea is a good idea, whoever comes up with it, and also where you find a way to collect that when it is kind of a bit of chaotic. You have to be, I think, deliberate about that.
So how do you plan for that in your recruitment then? How do you try and pick the people that you hope won't disappear if they get to the bottom of that you were talking about, that they'll stay and carry on growing in the company?
Well, I think you can view it and you can describe it in so many professional ways, but I usually look at it and when I try to explain it is, you know, you need people to have a driving license. So you have to check that, right, if they're going to drive a car. And then the driving license is more about, depending on what role or profession we are looking for, to check the boxes of, hey, do we look for somebody that is experienced? Do we look for a special, you know, education or something like that? But then we are all different drivers too. Do you need somebody that actually drive Formula One, or is it like Sunday driving? And we need all that, right? So it's not about culture fit, it's about culture add-on. And that is where the diversity comes in. And the diversity is important, especially if you want to be a culture of innovation. When everybody has the same background, when everybody kind of brings the same thing to the table and they've known each other for years and years and years, went to the same school, same language, you know, same gender, you know, all the things that we put into diversity, then also the output, the throughput and the outcome will be the same and not very innovative and creative. So that is what we look for. And what we usually also say is tell the truth, don't oversell the job. So when you come to Spotify, it's still very much not a set table, right? What will you encounter? What are we looking for? We still decide the menu. We still go out grocery shopping together. We still cook together and we eat together. So if anybody is looking for kind of a set table, this is not it. And then I think when you have these conversations, you will also find the people that actually can thrive and also like and looking for that controlled chaos, and where they can have a lot of impact, no matter what role, or if they are young or if they're seasoned, if they have sit in a specific pocket in the world and all that. And you want that mix. But you also have to, as an organization, understand that diversity and that mix comes with a tax, right? It will most likely slow you down for a while in the short term, but in the long term, you will pivot and you will thrive from that. So these are the things you have to be open, you need to be transparent, and you need to discuss and debate and make sure that everybody understands this. So there are a couple of traits that we are looking for. And we're also telling people that you know, change is the only constant. Growth is our mantra, and you need to stay passionate, curious, and it's very, very important that you are able to adapt to the changes, both the company, the culture, the growth, but also what's happening out there, especially on the tech side of it.
So for people that are within the company then, in this atmosphere of controlled chaos, if they have an idea, is there a set structure or way of putting that forward, or is it just a sort of free-for-all? Mention it to a colleague, mention it to a manager.
So I think it's a mix of that, and I think it needs to be a mix of that. If it gets too structured, it's only, you know, between 2 and 3 on Mondays, or it's only when we do these exercises. So you need to, and I think that's why we've also been very, very deliberate about this controlled chaos that I'm mentioning all the time. And to be honest, I think it used to be only chaos, and I think it's control now. And is it just not our capabilities to make it like in an ordinary business? I think we actually believe that when things and ideas and people clash, this is when new ideas come, right? So what is the benefits of that, and why are we trying to do that? I think the structure is our spike days, or our, you know, hack weeks, where people are free to think about and bring whatever ideas they have, and things that might also, when they have brought it in the structured way to their managers or the manager's manager, or been discussed in a department or in a mission or wherever they are working. And people go like, no, don't really believe in that, or it doesn't really fit in our platform, or it doesn't really fit in within, you know, the legal or the HR or the comms, depending on where you are. And then for a week, you get together, you can sell an idea. I have this, do you want to come and work with this project of mine? And then so many times, like so many times, these are things that actually ends up as a part of the organization, as a part of our platform, as something that even the customer then can, you know, thrive from, or use, or enjoy, hopefully. So it's very, very important. It's a part. It's structured, but it's also something that really just comes up.
So give us some examples. What kind of entrepreneurship have you witnessed? What are your sort of favourite initiatives that have perhaps come from more junior members of the company or people in different departments?
I think a lot of things that customers or user or listeners are using and are really, really, enjoying as features on our platform are typical things that also maybe were even shut down. I think when we have our unplugs, or also when we have our town halls, or after or going into Hack Week, these are the stories that Daniel usually also tells to the organization, that this feature or this that everybody kind of really love is something that I didn't believe in. And here we had a group of people that were passionate about it, and they didn't really also take one no, and they proved us wrong.
Was that with the playlist?
Typical playlist, or not the shuffle, but a lot of things that we now take for granted in the service has actually come up that way, of people not taking one no, and not necessarily a second no either, but just typical, really, really nice features.
And I suppose a lot of that is connected to the company culture, that it wasn't just, oh, I've done this process, it was a no, or I spoke to this one boss and it was a no, that it's maybe a bit flatter, there's this chaos. There's multiple ways to try and push your ideas through.
Yes, yes, it is, and also, when everything is open, everything is transparent, and there's no office kind of no doors or shut doors, or we don't even have offices. It's very easy to bring your idea to whoever. It just doesn't have to be your manager, and it's not necessarily also structured in the sense like, here you put your idea in a box. It's important, as I said, that you can walk around, you can come up with ideas, but then we also have dedicated time for these ideas to prosper. And I think when you also can pitch an idea, and then people that usually you don't work closely with, say like, oh, I'm interested in that idea, and then they come together, like 10 people that usually don't see each other, don't know each other. This is where really interesting things also come to play.
One thing I'm interested in with Spotify is when we think about innovation, we often think about the next tech tool or the next product, but this is also something that you have sought to have throughout the business. So people working in legal, people working in finance, for them to also be entrepreneurial. Tell us a bit about that.
No, but I think it's very, very outspoken in the organization that is actually what we expect. And we have seen so many different things coming together. And it depends also how you, I think, define, innovation. But just to give you a couple of examples, usually it's a timing, and it's also two things that maybe already exist, but then you put them together in a different way. So the way we went public, for instance, I think crazy innovative of our finance team and also our CFO. Not just innovative, but also very, very, very brave. First of all, you have to come up with the idea that you don't IPO like most companies or all other companies, that you will do a direct listing. Then you have to bring that idea to a boss that actually in the split second goes like, I think that is a good idea, right? So you have to have that environment. You also have to have that trust, and also that it's an environment that actually then welcomes sometimes failures too, and not necessarily because you love failures and it's okay to do the same kind of mistake over and over again, but you understand that you learn from them, right? And you have to learn faster than the world is changing. So I think that is a typical thing of finance. I think the way that we've been working in the legal department too, that there are several different ways that we have done things. Or, for instance, in my own remit, just bringing Swedish parental leave to the rest of the world, 2015, is also one of those things where people maybe would go like, why, and expensive, and that is crazy. Well, it's as expensive to find new customers as it rather than keep your old ones. Same goes with employees. So for attraction and retention, you have to think maybe differently than not just cost or immediate cost. It's an investment.
Yeah.
So I think that is expected for every department and not just the tech and product.
You mentioned giving people the license to fail. Obviously, that is very important to be innovative and progress. Can you give us any behind the scenes looks at things that you've tried that didn't work, or things that maybe never made it to the app that people spent months working on?
I think we have done a couple of really, really big bets in the organization, and I think the most important is when you do them, even if they don't fly, and even if they don't turn out to be winning bets, there was a lot of learning. But I think the biggest part that the whole organization benefits from, and all people is that when senior people and executives actually owe that, they go up on what we have, like the town halls where all the employees in real time, except for the people in Australia due to time differences, tune in and they can ask questions in real life to the whole executive team. For then having, the chief product or chief R&D officer, for instance, saying like, we worked on this for a year, we kind of maybe also worked for it for a year and a half, up to 2 years. And you know what, with all the data sets we had over here, all the things that we were trying, the A/B testing, it's not necessarily now performing the way that we were anticipating. And then for everybody also to see that a person like that will not be shut down. He will not lose his job, and he will owe that. But also, which is important, then say, but from this, even if it's not acting or performing the way that we were hoping, we now realized a couple of things that we will use in the former developing or progress, or when we're looking into other things. And I think these examples we've seen over and over again, and you have to be able to do that. And I think it's very, very, very important also for the senior teams and the people in the organization to do that, because it kind of reimburses that feeling of trust. And we all know also, if you're going to be in the scale-up phase, and I think this is also true for the mature phase, is when the realization of when trust goes up, speed goes up, and when trust goes down, speed goes down, and that speed is very, very important because it beats a lot of things, right? If you have it like 80-90% right, you can't wait until you have all your ducks in the row. You need to move, especially if the competition is fierce, and it is. And we all know, that our competitors been around for a longer time, maybe have deeper pockets, and also have a lot of smart people.
Yeah. Really useful insights so far. We've got a few questions that have come in from the audience. Thanks again for those of you who've put them in. This one says, how do you stay entrepreneurial and agile in an organisation that's now grown so much? So we've touched on that a bit, but this one says, according to theory, at some point there is a moment when the organisation usually moves into a more bureaucratic structure and culture.
That is very true, and I think everybody that works with organizational design and all those theories are actually true also, I think, in reality. So there is something happening when you go from 180 to 250. There's something that happens when you go from 800 to 2,500 and all those stages. And I think this is where you have to be diligent. You have to know that, and you need to shift the load from the left leg to the right leg, meaning that you also need to change your org setup, right? And usually that comes with pain and people. But I think when you are in the growth phase, if you build to your strength and also your opportunities, there are a couple of things that are important. When people don't have to understand, they don't have to like your decisions or the changes that you do, to not become complacent and not become an organization where everything is like process driven or formula driven or admin heavy. How can you still keep a bit nimble, more agile, even as you grow? And that means that you have to, before everybody's ready, change a couple of things all the time, and that comes with that tax or that pain. But if you then over-index on communication and communicate and think about hit, and remind all the time, people, as I said, they don't have to like your decision. they have to understand it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think those are the things that are basics, and people sometimes go like, what does that have to do with anything? It has to do with everything. If you're gonna keep that kind of momentum, if you're still gonna move faster than an enormous, organization, you can do that by being very smart about how you set up your organization, and also what you don't do. So back again to that controlled chaos. The way you can view an organization is too, like when you're a toddler, and that is the startup, right? And then you grow into something after a couple of while that is a teenager. What is funny with the teenager is he, she, they, right? They still know how to drink milk, but you kind of you can't really control your body. So sometimes you spill the milk, and it's not like you forget from one day to another how you pick up and how you drink. And then you want to rush it maybe as an organization kind of growth into the more of young adult. For us, we are not necessarily in a rush to become a grown-up, because with the grown-up comes the bureaucracy that you were mentioning. But you can also decide that that's not going to happen, because it will kill back to the innovation, right? And the creativity. As soon as you become a grown-up, there are complacency, there are ways that we do this. Well, we don't want it to be the ways that we do that. We want to enable, we want to create that kind of arena where, as I said, a good idea is a good idea. And it doesn't matter what role you have or when you enter the organization, you need to find your way to have that impact. And this is also where I think, you have to be a bit careful about hierarchies. That is not necessarily how you only paint the org chart. It's more about how you view things, and how you give everybody a voice, and back to the trust of the organization that everything is open, everything is transparent, which means that if you have all the information, you can also act, right? Yeah. You can also put one and one together. You can also then start to innovate.
Yeah. Okay, a bit of transparency here then. I do have some Wi-Fi issues, so I don't think I'm getting all of your questions through, but as I mentioned, we'll try and get to as many of them as we can once the cameras are off, if needs be. But I do have one more that's coming for you, Katarina. What is the most important factor to invest in a new employee to get the entrepreneurial flame and to ignite in them the will to be aligned with the company's expectations from the get-go? I mean, you talked a bit about that in terms of recruitment, but I suppose if people are in companies where they feel that people don't have that drive, is there a way to help them get that?
But I think it's about like role modeling a lot. You can say that you are open for all, and you want them to have that impact, or you want them to come forward with their ideas, and then when they do, you go like, yeah, we already tried that, or well, who are you again, or wait until you've been here for several years, then maybe we'll listen to you. I think it's very important that what you say also goes hand in hand in what you do, and here obviously we not been around for longer than 16 years, but it's quite easy for the people that maybe have been here for 16 or 10 years ago, like we already tried that. I think the interesting with not having people saying that at all, or almost have that as something that you are not allowed to say, is this: what didn't necessarily work. If you have tried it again, maybe it didn't work because we were only 800 people, or because people were not as used to using streamed music, or because podcast is kind of a new format or anything like that. So it could have been too early with the idea.
Yeah.
But I think, when you come into the organization where it's kind of becoming a bit stale, or it's like, well, we've been around for 300 years, we don't do that. I think they sometimes might get stuck in the trap of, so it's not going to fly, or we're not even going to try. And I think for us it's very, very important to dare to pressure test ideas, and also to understand that there is a lot of chosen truth, because you become, as I said, complacent, which I think is the most dangerous place to be for an individual, but also for an organization. So you have to stay humble to your success. You have to stay passionate, curious. you have to understand that learning is the most important thing for individuals, but also for organizations. And it's all about the growth of, when your employees are doing well, the company will do well. When your employees grow, the company will grow. And sometimes people go like, that is very naive. Yeah, but it's also very true. So why don't you work on the individuals? The 3 Ps for any organization, the people, the product, the profit, is true, no matter what organization it is. But you can't really do a lot with the product or the profitability if you don't have great people, right? And the best teams. So you have to remove the blockers and the barriers for innovation, collaboration. And I think it's back to the typical 3 or 5 Cs, right? It is, you have to be clear about who you are, what you expect, and make sure that you try to kind of align that with how the organization act or what your expectations are. You have to be communicative, and you have to be compelling, and you also have to be consistent, right? And then the context is very, very important to that. So it's very much part of your culture, and I think people, culture is super important as a tool for success.
So let's talk a bit about how the pandemic has impacted upon this. I mean, because in terms of company culture, going to your cool Spotify office, getting to go to gigs, having all those after-work mingles, face-to-face time, that's gone. And correct me if I'm wrong, but while a lot of companies have gone back since restrictions have lifted, in Sweden and elsewhere, you're all still working remotely, pretty much.
Yes, so what we said from the beginning, because we have offices in all the time zones of the world, and I think the pandemic was much clearer in the eastern part of the world. We actually sent everybody home at the same time. And I think it puzzled some of our employees in Europe and also in US because it was already cases there, but people didn't necessarily understand what the pandemic would actually be. And we say that we are people first, and I'm super proud that we acted that way. It was safety for our people and their families first. And then we said we will follow restrictions and also government and the people that actually are knowledgeable with something that was quite new, because we all had to rewrite the playbook as we went along, and nobody kind of sat with any information that we have today, and a lot of people were scared. So it was very important, back to that over-indexing information with the crisis management team at Spotify. And then now, as you say, when if a government says that it's safe and we welcome back, and everything else is good, when we have a couple other parameters, we haven't opened it 100%. We opened our offices for the people that were struggling with. I'm not really feeling well at home. We have our, 49 offices in the 178 markets that we oversee today. And said, due to mental health and the walls are kind of, or been in lockdown, all that. We opened them for 5%, so it could be social distance and all that. And now, if it's cleared by the government in a location, then it's 33%. And that's still very important to us, because people, we want them to feel safe. And we also don't want to be part of the spikes that we see around the world. And it's also been one of the messages from the beginning. Let's help the people that are actually working in the care system, in all the hospitals, doing the heavy care lifting when it comes to all the people that actually got really, really, really sick. So what can we do? 100% digital, where we can work from home. We have seen that it hasn't affected our productivity or efficiency. Where we were more concerned was the people that wants to come into the office, and these are the ones that we now open the offices where it's safe now.
But how have you maintained the vibe, the culture, it's difficult to do that on Zoom and Teams.
Super hard, especially since we, as you said, also had a couple of perks that comes with in the part of the business that we are. But we have a team that is called the PX team, which is the people experience team, that sits within HR that overnight decided to go kind of virtual and digital with all the offerings. So we had digital afterworks. We reminded people how important it is to, you know, sleep and eat, and if they could get out, to do exercises, to put down the lid so they wouldn't get screen fatigue, start to do walks and talks and have meetings on the go instead, and not necessarily always look at screen, but sometimes only take phone calls. We did silly things. We did something we call the lemon challenge. That was kind of a race that started in the executive team, just so people could have a giggle. It's important during pandemic. But I think what helped us mostly, besides the afterworks and the Swedish fika with your team online and all that, I think the most important with the pandemic or a crisis, this controlled chaos. For us to just move into something that was uncertain and unknown, we'd practice that every day, right? So we were really, really great position there, and I think that with the grits and the resilience, that is actually a tool. And I think a lot of people now know that the organization that didn't have to, it's a combination of things, right? It was the business per se, but also how ready the organization is for these things that we can't predict. And I think that is one of the things that every organization, no matter what business they are, should practice, because it's important. And the only thing that we know, I think, for the future is that change is constant, and you cannot always be in control. And you're individuals.
What are your plans then for opening up? Do you think you'll get back to that company culture, those company perks, or do you think it's going to stay quite remote for the foreseeable?
So in March this year, we also launched the Spotify Work from Anywhere program. So we listened to our employees during the last 22 months, surveyed them once a quarter and asked, like, how are you doing? How are you really doing? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? And one thing that they all said was, kind of the blessing part of the whole curse was the freedom and flexibility. We want to keep that. Long story and a full program with all the details and kind of the FAQ with 500 kind of questions and answers when we launched the program, is that we wanted to give people a choice between an office mix and home mix. And 60% says they want to come back to the office. So we're going to keep all our offices, and we used the last 17 months to rebuild them, to have more of silent areas, more collaborate, more creative, things that people say that they want to come into the office and do, less typical desks and the way that they were furnished. They are more playful today. I think they're more collaborative. So yes, the plan is to open them again, but people want to have that freedom and flexibility. They want to come in, get that energy. What scientists usually talk about is, as behavior scientists, that third room. You know, that when, not the planned meetings, but when you actually bump into people and start to have conversations, bounce ideas, get the energy that you most likely can only get from looking people into the eyes. So we're going to keep all our offices, but will it ever be like it was? Never. So what we have to crack the code is two things. How do you keep creating a sense of belonging, of community, and being, you know, a part of this team, and putting that mental kind of club blazer on? How do you do that? And I think we're trying a couple of things. The other thing is, when everybody is distributed, how do you work more asynchronously than before? The idea was everybody comes in, you work on the same project in the same time zone. But for us, the thing that really made us launch this was a notion of one thing, I believe. Work is something that you do and not necessarily a place you come into, right? And by launching this, 3 purposes, right? Attracts more people, because people have different ideas of where they want to work, back to the freedom and flexibility. 2, retaining people with that flexibility. And 3, be able to cast a net in wider or new talent pools, people that maybe are digital nomads already, or like that kind of gig thing that is going on too, but wants to be connected and maybe gig for one and the same company. or the people that a lot of us would like recognize, wants to move with the sun, like start the year in New Zealand and then work their way over, right?
Living the dream.
Living the dream. And you can do that with a company like ours. So what works for us might not work for other companies or for other businesses, but this is what and then be very humble about, we need to tweak, we need to check in. Is people actually working too much? What about the boundaries? Mental health, super important if you want to be a people first company. So we will keep on serving our people and then acting on what they say works for them.
It's very interesting to hear how data driven that is, because there have been quite a lot of surveys showing that a lot of managers do just want their teams back in the office. They've struggled with managing remotely, but this is so sort of built into the company ethos now. Before we wrap up, we've had some really great insights from Spotify's entrepreneurial journey, but as we've been touching on, we also want this to feel relevant to more traditional businesses and industry. So what would be the key points that you hope that they can take away from this discussion?
I think, so I've been in very many of those really nice and maybe a bit older but great brands. And I think one other thing is the openness and transparency. I've been also in companies where it's like, is this compliant or can we do that? You can. It's all about trust. And the same thing goes with when you launch a program like Work From Anywhere. It is built on trust, and also the belief that the leadership or the management role is not to check and control. It's actually to point out direction, to actually coach and mentor, all the things that we say, but you have to act like that.
Yeah.
And then when you recruit really smart people in any industry, let them do the work. You don't have to micromanage them, right? Or they will leave you if they have the opportunity. So the trust, I think, the communication, and also the transparency, the openness. I think that doesn't matter what industry. If you don't do that, I think you have a trust issue as a senior management team. So I think that goes for any business. Then I do realize that, if you're in a service, you need to do that service in that hotel, right? Or if you are working somewhere where you actually produce something that has to do with an assembly line or something, you have to do that. But you can still trust your people, and you can ask them what works for them, and then they will come up with things, and they will be more loyal, they will be more efficient, and they will be more innovative. So you don't have to tell people, you have to listen to people. If they do understand what you're all about, if they know your purpose, if the why is clear, the how is easy. Let them decide the how.
And what about for more medium-sized businesses that feel they've kind of stalled, they've had their innovation, they've plateaued? How can they sort of reignite that entrepreneurial side of things?
I think don't be scared of that controlled chaos. Do understand that people, when everything is very organized, people will then also sit a bit back in the chair and then just, do what they did yesterday. And it's also, people say that they don't like change. If you're a human being, you don't like change. And the only change you like is the ones that you initiate yourself, because then you have all the information, all the data sets, and then you go like, oh, I think I'm going to do this today. I will try tea, even if I'm a coffee drinker. But if I tell you to try tea, you go like, no, I kind of like coffee, right? And then I go like,
the other way around for me. I'm British. Tea, yes, but I have tried the coffee since getting into the Swedish life.
But you don't want to be told to drink coffee, right? And I think that is the thing. If you understand the mechanism in all of us, and that the people that work with you, for you, right, depending on how you view that, they don't like to be told off the same way you don't like to be told, right? But if you have all the information, you might understand that it might enrich my life if I try coffee once in a while, and then I decide I like it or not like it, right? I don't want to be told. And I think these are the universal things. What are our drivers? Autonomy. No matter who you are, where you work, where in the organization, autonomy is important. but not free for all, or I decide. I mean, if you're not making ping pong balls, then you can't, decide that you're going to do that. If you're in stream music, or if you're in, building cars, you have to be autonomy within, right? So it's that freedom, but with responsibility and accountability. Then, competence development, super important. The upskilling, reskilling that everybody's talking about, is that not part of your rhythm? I think you will not be in a good position as a company. And obviously, I think that is also a responsibility towards all your employees to make them employable in the next phase and the next phase and next phase. And then we all know that we are human beings, so we like that belonging. You want to be part of something that is bigger than yourself. Otherwise, you would have a one-man show. You work for yourself and you do your thing. Very few people are like that. And it's not anything wrong with that. But if you're in an organization, you want to be part of a team. Let people be part of the team and listen to what they have to say. And then the fourth thing is also, as a universal driver, is benevolence, right? It's not just about making money to shareholder. You want to understand, you want to build something, and you also want to be part. And I think especially younger generation, a company that dares to be value driven.
Yeah, some really great and concrete tips. Thank you so much for that. Before we wrap up, I'd be a bad journalist if I didn't ask you what's next for Spotify. It's pretty rare to be face-to-face with such a senior leader in the organisation. Any hints, anything we can look forward to?
No, not except for that I'm super excited of what's going to happen the coming 3 years. For me to know and for you to find out.
All right, we'll keep digging. We are running out of time. I'm sorry we weren't able to get through all the questions, but we will read anything that you've sent in. Katarina's going to stick around for a little while and try and answer some of those on camera, I think, so you should be able to see them on the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences website a little bit later. And you can also head there to watch back some of the previous sessions we've done during the autumn and winter. We've had some great guests so far. Erik Ekkerden, Chief Technology Officer for Ericsson, also Anna Salander, working in human resources at academic work, formerly at companies like Northvolt. So do head online and check them out, and also keep an eye out for some of our future events around intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you at home and in the office. Thank you very much to Katarina. So goodbye from all of us, from me, Maddy Savage, and everyone here at the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.